going to do a lot of typing for this meeting, but it doesn't have a keyboard, huh?
Good evening. Knock, knock. I tried. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm calling this regular meeting of the Governing Board to order. Let the record show that we do have our 5 board members present. So before we begin, please join me in a moment of silence. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, are there any changes to the agenda, Mr. Quintana?
Mrs. Wilson, members of the Governing Board, good evening. No changes at this time.
I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I don't believe we have any call to the public. No? All right, so we're going to go right into our special recognition. We have 2 of them.
Yes, Mrs. Wilson, members of the Governing Board, at one of our study sessions, it was a board workshop several months ago. The Governing Board asked that we start recognizing individuals or an individual that contributes to our goals of closing the achievement gap and eliminating the achievement gap and increasing student achievement. So in discussing this with the executive team, we decided we would start somewhat broad and then begin to narrow down. So this evening, we are going to honor and respectfully request that we do so once a month, honor our schools with the highest teacher attendance rate and the schools with the highest student attendance rate. So I'll start with the first one. At this time, the Governing Board will recognize a school with the highest teacher attendance rate from August 7th to present, and that school is Bicentennial North School. We do know that when teachers are here and they're in front of kids, students have the greatest opportunity to learn and to progress academically. So we appreciate the efforts that our teachers and other employees make to be here. I do want to mention that Bicentennial South, Desert Spirit, and Landmark were closely behind, and the rest of you are also in there as well. So we will be issuing this award once a month. So if we can have someone from Bicentennial North come up to receive their plaque and their award. Congratulations. And please thank your staff members for Mrs. Wilson, members of the board, the second special recognition at this time, the Governing Board will recognize the school with the highest student attendance rate from August 7th through present, and that school is Discovery School. And before someone from Discovery School comes up to accept the award, I do want to mention that Bicentennial North, again, Coyote Ridge, Landmark, Smith, and Horizon were just a percentage point behind and closely in the race for the award. And we ask that all schools, again, encourage our students to be at school every day because we know that they're going to benefit from their attendance. So if we can have someone from Discovery School come up. Congratulations to you and your students.
All right, we're going to go right into our consent agenda. So are there any items that board members would like pulled? Okay, hearing none, I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. And we are at item 6, so we have two items under reports and information. So we'll start with 6A.
Mrs. Wilson, members of the governing board, this evening the Arizona Measurement of Educational Readiness to Inform Teaching data presentation will take place, and I believe that Dr. Peterson and Corvaya and members of their team are here to present that information to you and to answer any questions that you might have. Dr. Peterson and Corvaya.
Thank you. Mrs. Wilson, members of the board, Superintendent Quintana, I was not expecting to be here this evening, but it is what it is. But we have a lot to celebrate, so I'm really excited to share this information with you. So, as you know, the A to F letter grades came out in the middle of October, and we made some great gains, so I'm excited to show you this. Some differences between the old system.
It's hard to read that.
It is a little hard to read this. There is some differences between the old letter grade system and the new letter grade system. As you know, the test used to be called the AIMS test. Now it's called the AZ Merit, and there used to be added points for ELL proficiency, lowering the FFBs or the falls far below category, and a dropout rate in high school. Now it's about ELD improvement and growth and some other indicators, and for us specifically, something called acceleration, which we're going to get into what that really means a little bit later. Also, with the old letter grade system, it started statewide with about 20% of the schools were A's, but by 2014, it rose to about 33% of the schools in the state were receiving an A. Now, the current logic or the mathematics behind it, the calculations, means that about 18% of K-8 schools will be an A statewide, and 16% of high schools will get an A this year. In the previous system, you needed 3 Ds in succession to then become an F school. Now in the new system, you can become an F in the first year. And the last system, there used to be 140 points possible plus 6 bonus points, and now there's 100 points with 2 bonus points possible. A little small font, but on the right-hand side, it's really on the right-hand side as well. So it's pretty straightforward. You want as many students as possible to pass the test, to be proficient or highly proficient. That goes without saying. You also want to challenge students to take algebra and geometry in middle school if appropriate, and helping all subgroups or diverse populations improve in their scores. You want to help students to graduate on time, students to get to proficiency in English, as that's 10% of the overall, and making students ready for college or career. That's really in the high school calculation. And as you have probably heard in the news and through the conversations about this, there's a huge push for growth, not just proficiency. And so we'll get into what growth looks like and how they calculated the growth. So what does each letter grade mean? So it's not just the letter grade, but there is actually also a kind of a definition to that letter. And you can see an A is excellent, B is highly performing, C is performing, D is minimally performing, and F is failing. We actually have some schools here, and we'll get to what their determination was in just a second, that they've actually started to put these on their kiosks, or not kiosks, marquees. So it's very exciting. These are the percentages to keep track of. This is what we're really focusing on. So to get an A, you have to have 86% or above, and then you can see the other delineations after that. They're about 12-point intervals, and they round up and or down, depending on their decimal point. We really want to start to, as long as it stays the same for next year, the calculations, we really want to make sure that we start to learn these numbers because it helps us strive for that A. This is a very quick snapshot of the whole K-8 system. You'll see the biggest section is the growth section, so you can think of these as percentages and or points. So out of 100 points or 100%, 50% of that or 50 points of it is going to be based on growth. 30% of it's going to be based on proficiency. I would add or highly proficient in that. ELL, growth and proficiency is 10%, and acceleration, which has a number of different factors under that, is also 10%. This is a one-page snapshot of what our history of our letter grades have been in our school district for each school. And so you'll see here that it started, we started in 2011 with the Ames letter grades, and you'll see our letter grades going down from that, and that every school received a letter grade based off of that, all the way through 2014, where we ended up with those letter grades. Those are the letter grades in 2014 that we've been holding on to for 3 years. So this is the new letter grades, and though we're talking about apples and oranges, really, with the two accountability systems, it's just good to see the historical grades over time. But it is apples and oranges the way that the grades were calculated. You can see that we have 6 schools that rose in a letter grade, 5 schools that stayed the same in a letter grade, and 3 schools that went backwards in one letter grade. This is a really important table that we spend a lot of time looking at. So every school, oh, I should go back, and I forgot to mention, I apologize. You'll see 3 grade out sections. Those are our K-3 schools and the district. The district did not get a letter grade. No district got a letter grade this year because they wanted to implement it first. Supposedly that's going to happen next year, that districts will get a letter grade. But our K-3 schools, because if you remember on that other slide, 50% was based on growth. And so you can't really calculate growth in the first year of an accountability measure with just 3rd grade scores at a school. Yes?
So at this time, is there any conversation at the state level as to if they will be doing grades for our K-3 campuses?
Yes, there's a conversation right now, and actually David Jordan, our Director of Research and Assessment, is on that committee that just started this week, I believe, or next week. And that will, they're going to be dealing with all the other combinations of schools. So like the 6-12s, the 11-12s, the K-3s, those that just didn't fit the formula. They're going to try to figure out the formula for those. However, I do have to say, and Ms. Sagata Jones says this each time we've presented this, so I feel safe in saying this, is that she convinced David Jordan to try to calculate what those grades would be for those schools the best that we could, even though there wasn't really a formula for it. And we're pretty,
We're fairly certain.
We're fairly certain.
I'll say that.
Thank you.
Moderately confident.
Moderately confident, I like that. we're moderately confident that Bi-Sci South would have been a B. We're pretty confident in that. Desert Garden and Jack teetered between a B and a C, so we weren't as confident in saying that for sure a B or for sure a C on those, but definitely Bi-Sci South. And why we're more confident in that one is because we saw so much growth between different cohorts of third graders being proficient and growing between the years. So that's why we would say that. So hopefully they come out with that formula as quickly as possible so we can start to figure that out. And as you know, it's a mathematical game. And so we want to know what the formula is while we're playing. So that's going to happen soon, hopefully. So this table breaks it down. You'll see the first column is proficiency, and it also something called stability proficiency. So that was something that was kind of new to us. So not only do they calculate the number of students or percentages of students who are proficient or highly proficient, they also calculate the students over 3 years of time that you do not want to ever go backwards in your proficiency. So it's that stability of proficiency that they also look at. That's an important thing to remember. And you can see our scores of points out of 30 points. You can see those scores right there. Now you'll see the next one, which we did really well on in our district. We did really well with growth. Out of 50 points, you'll see we had numbers in the 40s and 30s for our growth points. And what you'll hear David Jordan, Ms. Sagata-Jones, and Alfredo Barantes talk about a lot is that we do pretty well with growth. We can take a student and move them. Where we really need to focus on now, and you can see this in the numbers, is that proficiency. So what we've gotten really good at is focusing on those minimally proficient students and moving them to partially proficient or proficient. But now we need to move more kids from partially proficient into that proficient and highly proficient place. And that's good for us to know, because that means maybe different tactics or strategies that we need to do.
Dr. Peterson and Corvaya, can you take just a moment to explain to the governing board and those in attendance and watching why they may hear someone say we're 3 points from an A or 4 points from a B and so forth, and the reasoning behind our encouragement to share or describe it in that fashion?
So it's always about communication and marketing and how you say
and our
things.
Goal to get to that.
And so when we talk about, when I told you to look at those percentages and we start to remember those percentages, it's that 86%. And for us to remember that it's 86 to get to an A, you'll see here in that last column, we have one school in particular, Horizon, that has an 85. And so instead of saying I'm a B or I'm highly performing at 85 points, saying you're 1 point from an A, you're 1 point from excelling is very different mindset.
Sound, yes.
And I know it's lit a huge fire under Sherry Dawn Emerson. So it's a different conversation then. It's when you have a goal like that, 1 point from an A versus we were a B.
Well, not only that, but even to say, going for 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, that sounds a lot like an attainable goal.
Right,
Yep.
it's doable.
Yeah.
It's definitely more doable instead of just thinking 100 points.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I'm at 70. That seems like forever, but when you start to think, okay, well, it's actually 16 points from an A.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. ELL proficiency and growth, and that's based on the Azella test that our ELL students take in February and March. You can see which schools got what points in that. You'll see Discovery got a full 10 points in that, and then it was gradated after that. Acceleration and readiness, and we'll talk about what goes into that, but you can see a lot of our schools got the full 10 points. There's actually somewhere between 16 and 20 points available for schools, but it's a menu and you can only get 10. But there's about 20 that they pick and choose from to get you to your 10. So you can see that, and what's again good about that information is a place like Glendale American or IMES, we actually can go into the data and find out exactly which acceleration points did you not get, or how much did you not get of it, so that you can start to focus on that. SPED bonus points. SPED bonus points are points that are given, and I talked to a couple people about it because it seems almost opposite of your mindset about how you get the points, but this is how you get them. There's a state average of SPED students in our state, and that state average is about 11.1% of students in the state are characterized as special education. So you as a school district need to have 80% or more of your enrolled SPED students, oh no, I'm not saying this right, I need to say it correctly because it's a little convoluted. So you have to have 80% of your enrolled students be 80% of that 11.1%. So in our district, 80% of 11.1% is 8.9%. 8.9 or more percent of our students need to be classified as special ed, and we get 2 points. Does that make sense now that I made it all messy in the beginning? So if we meet 80% of the state average in the number of, or percentage of SPED students enrolled in our district, we get the 2 points. It's a very easy 2 points to get for the most part, but some schools don't get it because of the number of SPED students they have at their school. And so it makes it a little bit difficult for some schools to get that. We're right now looking at Mensindex numbers because they did not get it per the state. And so we do have an appeal in for that, to look at that. Because we believe they might have calculated it a little different than we do. And it is based off of full academic year students. Then you can see the letter grade and the points that they received to get that letter grade at the end of that. So again, a very important table to have that we bring into a lot of conversations. We really like this graphic, and there's a couple reasons for it. As you can see, it's a very distributive line, and you can see that we are in the majority on the right-hand side of this line. Which is a really great celebration that all of our schools are to the right of this line. You can actually see Horizon again, 1 point from an A, and then you can see the clusters of schools. It's interesting, we've talked a lot about trust in the journey, stay the course, and we've also talked a lot about how you can't just move one teacher by one teacher's class of students to get to proficiency. You can't just move one team of teachers to get to proficiency. You can't just move one school at a time to get to proficiency. You have to move the whole district. And so what you can see here is that everybody's clustered together and on the right-hand side. And so that shows, I think it shows that we're moving a district forward instead of just school by school or teacher by teacher, student by student, but the whole entire district forward. A little dark, but you can see what we wanted to do is show comparable school districts and where they fell with their letter grades. And you can see where the highlighted section in the middle, we had 6 Bs, 7 Cs, and 1 D, only 3 points from a C. You can see then the comparable districts, anywhere from Alhambra to Washington School District. Obviously, we took into account socioeconomic status, other demographics, size, and the types of schools they had in their school district. So you can see that there. Again, there is no overall district letter grade this year, but they're hoping to do that for next year. This was another thing we wanted to celebrate, maybe not so much in ELA this year, but you can see what this tells you is the number of students scoring 100% across the district on AZ merit. And so, and we had that celebration a few governing board meetings ago, and so you can actually take, we had 8 students get 100% on ELA, and then we had 68 students get 100% on the math, and that was 76 medals that we gave out at that governing board meeting. And you can see that there was definitely, we're on the right track with math. Now we need to get there with ELA as well. Percent of students passing, so these are the number of percents of students getting proficient or highly proficient. You can see that it's incrementally going up there, and that's definitely in the right direction where we want to go. Is always in that upward, have that upward trajectory. You'll notice some grades didn't always have an upward trajectory, and we've talked about analyzing that data very specifically to get to that reasons why. As you've heard over the last probably 3 years now, the AZ Merit data that we get back is very different than the Ames data we used to get, and it's not always to the level of specificity that we want it to get to, so we're doing our best at making, and we get new data every year, and it gets a little bit deeper, so we're getting better at analyzing that and getting to what those gaps are. Students scoring highly proficient, this is a huge celebration for us. Number of students who are scoring highly proficient have grown, I think, exponentially across the district over the last 3 years. I think that's definitely something we want to celebrate. Yay! As you can imagine, getting highly proficient on the AZ Merit test is no easy feat. It is a quite rigorous assessment, and for our students to be able to do that, and more students to be able to do that year after year is really a great celebration for us and something to always keep in mind. This is what Mr. Quintana was talking about earlier, is to think about how many points you are away from the next letter grade up, but we would like to think about it always as on the way to the A. And so you can see on the left-hand side, we have all of our C and D school and how many points they were away from a B and how many points they are away from an A. Completely doable. And then you can see it over here, the number of schools we had as a B and how many points away they are from an A. So again, as long as the calculations stay pretty much the same and the formulas stay the same, we know what we need to do to get to those points. So before I say, I'm Miss Cindy Segato-Jones up there, I do want to explain acceleration, and I thought there was a slide in here on that, and there is not. So acceleration has multiple things that you can use to get to the 10 points. One thing is the number of students who take algebra and geometry and pass algebra and geometry. That's the key thing. It's not just number of students, but the number who are proficient on the algebra geometry. A second thing is reducing your number of minimally proficient third graders in ELA. So again, like the move on and reading, you want to reduce that number over time. A third piece of it is what's called SPED inclusion numbers. So what you want to do is get 7% or more of your SPED students to be in the inclusion model 80% or more of their time at school. So 7% or more of your special ed students in the inclusion model 80% or more of the day. And so that's really pushing for what we know for best practice, effective and research best practices is the inclusion model for many of our students is the way that we should go. Another thing that they put into that, that calculation is what is called subgroup improvement, or we use the term diverse populations. So when you have the ethnicities, poverty, or sorry, free and reduced lunch, and special ed, ELL, and gen ed. If you, besides the gen ed piece, if you improve those subgroup performances, you get points in the acceleration. And then finally, a piece called chronic absenteeism. And why I wanted to point that out was because of the awards we just gave this evening to the Discovery School for their work with their student attendance. When you reduce the amount of chronic absenteeism on your campus, you get points for that. If you stay the same or you reduce it, you get points, as long as you don't increase it. So chronic absenteeism is defined as, in a 180-day calendar, as 18 days absent. And so what we're doing on our end is making sure that people are categorizing absences correctly at the school site so that there's not some miscalculation going on in human error, but also making sure that we know that you can get 2 bonus points or 2 acceleration points for reducing that number, and it should be something that we focus on because we want our students in school anyway. So I wanted to explain acceleration to you a little bit with that, because it doesn't always mean acceleration with all those criteria, but that is the term they gave to it, so that's acceleration.
So in that situation, would it be a case of like a school that has, say, 8 students were identified as missing 18 or more days each, and the next year you got it down 2 less students that missed that many or more, so they would get points for that?
It's easier to talk about it in percentages instead of number of students, because your number of students will change.
Oh, because it's out of the whole?
Yes.
Okay.
It's out of the whole school.
Okay.
So you have to reduce it by percentage.
Okay.
Or stay the same, but not
So if
numbers.
you had 2 less students that missed that, but you had more students enrolled, then we'd get points.
Correct. Yes. So, unless there's questions, I'm ready to do, we can go on to some celebrations. Do we have any questions?
What do you think do you think that the criteria, the system will change?
The criteria, I'm sorry, what was that?
The criteria for the grade levels, I mean, for the grading, for the letters?
For the letters?
Do you think that system, do you think that they're still gonna, yeah.
I think they're gonna look at it, because there's obviously a lot of people who are upset statewide with it. I'd like to say we were actually pretty pleased with ours.
Yeah.
But I think they're always going to look at it, and when you read in the newspapers, almost every day there seems to be something about the letter grades, and I don't think there's any perfect system to it, but I think they're going to keep looking at it. I think once the group that David Jordan is a part of figures out the formulas for those other kinds of schools, that they'll probably start to look at this as well. But I don't think the growth focus is going to go away. I think that has been celebrated. I don't know if it's been calculated the way everybody wanted it to, but I think growth will definitely stay there as a major part of the letter grade.
As well it should.
I didn't see where David is seated, but I saw Alfredo shaking his head. He seems to think it's not going to, and I don't know, David, do you think it's going to possibly change or remain the same? And we know you're not part of that group.
Good evening, President Wilson and members of the governing board. It's not going to change a whole lot through the next year, because the primary focus is going to be taking a look and taking into consideration the schools that have non-traditional grade level configurations. For example, 6-12 schools, what do we do for those? 7-8 schools in a classic junior high school. And then also addressing the issue, looking ahead next school year for K2 and K3 schools, what to do for those, what might that model look like. And it's possible that over the years, we may see some revisions to it to get it better. Obviously, we're going to be seeing a brand new AZ merit test in about, I think it's 2020, 2021. So that may have an impact on how the letter grade model may be revised a little bit. But so there's a number of things that they want us to look at over the next couple, 2 or 3 years, and then ongoing as I rotate it out, somebody else will come in and they'll continue to have this standing committee year after year to reevaluate the letter grade and see where we need to tighten it up to make it more fair and equitable among all schools across the state.
Thank you, Dave. Any other questions?
I had one question. So on the one slide where it had the stability and the proficiency numbers that were on there, and you said, that's something that you were going to look at, and so is it already in our strategic goals to start working in that area to get those numbers higher?
Yes, in our what they're now called the site integrated action plans and our district integrated action plan. Those used to be the continuous improvement plans, which used to be the school improvement plans, which used to be the any other acronym. They all do go around proficiency goals for every grade level based on AZ merit and DIBELS for the younger kids, but AZ merit for the 3 on up. We are focusing on that. We also believe that thanks to the governing board's approval of our Tier 3 reading intervention program, and I have to give a huge shout out to our schools and the people implementing those. They're doing it with fidelity. Students are starting to read. It's just very, very exciting. It's a very rigorous and very by the book program, and so like when you go into a classroom you just snap your fingers, like people react to that and start reading magically. No, but it is a very rigorous program, so I think that that's going to help a lot too, because we're getting those students who just are not reading yet. They don't know their letter names, they don't know their sounds, they don't know their phonemes, that they're starting to learn those quicker and in a more structured manner. And then we can start to accelerate them into getting into those more proficient ranges instead of what I like to say, we try to just pick students that we knew would go over the bubble, and we're trying to get more students now. So I do think that we are focusing on that now, and they are part of our plans. Anything else?
I already asked mine, so.
Well, then if you wouldn't mind, governing board members and Mr. Quintana, what we'd like to do is present some plaques to our schools who are highly performing and performing. So if you wouldn't mind coming down.
Mrs. Wilson, members of the board, before we do that, I do want to let our governing board members know that because we did change the governing board date from next week to tonight, we do have a couple of administrators that had commitments, and they've asked someone else to be here in their place to accept the awards. So if you don't recognize them.
So first, we'd like to honor our highly performing schools. So highly performing school is, first one is Bicentennial North.
Congratulations. If you remember from the letter grade history, Bicentennial North went from having a D label to a B label.
Wow.
Also a highly performing school, and I know it is on his marquee, is Desert Spirit.
Yeah, don't run over the camera now.
Congratulations.
Sound effects.
The next school that is highly performing is Discovery.
Congratulations.
Okay, come back here for the photo.
The next school that is 1 point away from an A and is highly performing is Horizon.
Next year though, next year for sure, we'll have a good one here. Thank you, yes, you will, we'll have it next year for sure.
Yes, you will.
1 point.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's
1
it.
point. It's a strip with 1 on it. 1 point.
Okay. Skinny Ingle.
Stand on the chair.
And our other highly performing school is Sunset Vista.
Go down the line. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks,
Good work. Good work.
Turn this way.
Did I get the right angle?
Thank you.
Our performing schools, Glen F. Burton.
Arizona, not Texas.
We had college.
Oh, okay, you're off the hook. You're off the hook. You're good. You're good.
We had a big college day event.
Congratulations, Tom.
And Texas is okay today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good work.
Congratulations.
Another huge celebration is the next school because they were a D in the past and one of our comprehensive support schools. And they made it to a C, so congratulations, Challenger.
Congratulations. Thank you. Good work.
Where do you want me to stand?
And you're the lucky.
Also performing is Coyote Ridge.
Your first official engagement.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you. There you go. That's yours.
Next performing school is Glendale American.
I did.
Sad.
I did.
You're fired.
It makes us all look different. You're good. I like it. Mix it up. Mix it up.
Congratulations.
You have to
Okay,
come
pass
back.
it, pass it down.
Hey, you gotta stand with your back. Yeah, you gotta be in the middle.
We should make pens that say journey to an
Oh, that'd be nice. Bring that.
A. I will.
The next performing school is Glendale Landmark.
Congratulations.
Come on in.
The skinny angle too.
What you'll notice on the plaques also is there's a phrase on there that we really are celebrating, is honoring our journey to an A on every plaque. To keep that, again, that goal at the center of our work. Also performing, Isaac Yimes.
Congratulations.
Very excited. Congratulations.
You're good. Congratulations.
Next performance school is Melvin Sai.
Jamie's not allowed to touch him anymore.
Congratulations.
Sure, that is great.
Thank you.
BCD. Yeah.
Well planned.
Good work.
And finally, our last performing school is Harold W. Smith. Only 3 points from a B. Thank you.
Congratulations.
We'll make it happen. We'll get where we stand.
Yep.
One more. Thank you, everybody, and congratulations to all the schools. And we are on our way to being not only all A schools, but an A district. So very exciting. Thank you.
Okay, we do have one more report information item, the post-retirement incurred medical expenses prime plan.
Mrs. Wilson, members of the governing board, this evening the administration will provide the governing board with information regarding possible proposed revisions to policy GCCA, professional and support staff sick leave, to include the prime plan as a benefit to eligible employees who are leaving the district through resignation or retirement. And Dr. Goodwin can explain, or our presenter can explain the benefit that this possible change can have for our employees and the school district. Dr. Goodwin.
Madam President, members of the board, that's a really hard presentation to follow. Great job, Jerry, right? Good job. Really and he's humble. And he's humble.
No modesty.
We currently have a program in place that allows retiring employees to roll over the payout for sick leave accrual into a 403B plan upon separation from the district, which results in a tax benefit to them. As we always look to expand benefits for our employees, we would like to add a program for this as a benefit to our retiring employees to include the addition of another rollover option called a medical expense reimbursement trust, which would also result in a tax benefit for our retirees. Mark Powers is joining us from the Precision Retirement Group, and he's going to explain additional information about this opportunity. Mark?
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Powers from the Precision Retirement Group, and the plan we're talking about today is the Prime Choice Plan. Oh, sorry. Okay. Our company's been around for since 2002, and we are in our 11th year with school districts in Arizona. We're a private company specializing in a public sector marketplace. The program you see today, once again, has been around in Arizona for 11 years. And a few of our clients are Tulsa Union High School District, Chandler, Scottsdale, and Peoria. We are also nationwide. We have school districts from California all the way to Connecticut. Some of our bigger ones are Omaha, Nebraska, and Las Vegas. Traditionally, prior to this plan being put in place, when teachers retired or school district employees retired, they got paid their sick pay in cash. And that was a taxable event. That creates an issue called constructive receipt. That means that money is taxed in a calendar year it's made available for a participant, irregardless of whether they take it out or not. Glendale already solved the IRS constructive receipt issue by converting sick pay, once again converting sick pay from a taxable cash distribution to an employer contribution to a 403B plan. The 403B plan, as previously stated, provides a tax deferral option. Is there an option that can provide for tax-free money? The answer is yes. The school system can adopt the prime choice plan to convert accumulated sick pay, and in this case the expansion to potentially vacation pay, to an employer contribution not only to a 403B plan, but also perhaps to a medical reimbursement trust. By converting it to the employer, an employer contribution to either plan, it avoids constructive receipt issues. So once again, we're just going to be adding a potential benefit to your currently in place 403B plan for accumulated sick pay and vacation pay. And a program thereby allows the employer a choice for which benefit the employee will receive based on what the employee's needs will be. Who is going to be eligible for the plan? In order to be eligible for a participant in this program, you must have or will reach your 55th birthday in a calendar year of separation and be receiving at least $2,000 for your sick pay and vacation pay. Once again, in order to be eligible for the plan, you must reach or have reached your 55th birthday and be receiving at least $2,000 in sick pay and vacation pay. Once again, the money is going to go into one of two programs. So how is it determined which benefit the employee will get? It is done through a medical needs analysis where we present to all the retirees the benefits of both plans, and then we do an exit interview or a medical needs analysis working with each of your retirees to determine, based on their input, which benefit plan would best suit their needs, either the medical plan or the 403B. We go through a list of questions, and the biggest one after we work with them is to determine whether paying for post-retirement health care costs is a concern of yours. And if the employee needs money for health care, based on their responses and working with them and so they can understand the benefits of both plans, then the money is directed to the medical account. If an employee does not need money for health care, then the money is directed to a 403B plan. So once again, right now, if we were to go through an exit interview or a medical needs analysis and the employee needed money for retirement but not for health care, their sick pay and vacation pay would be directed to your 403B program. What are the benefits of a 403B for the retiree? Well, instead of being put in a position where they have to pay taxes this year when they receive their sick pay money, they have the opportunity to defer from income their accumulated sick pay and vacation pay. With most of your plans that you have here in the district currently in place, they're completely liquid. The employee gets to defer federal and state taxes. They can go into a fixed interest-bearing account with no sales charges or surrender charges. And the employee saves a 7.65%. So with your current plan that you've put in place, you're allowing the employee to defer from taxation their accumulated sick pay, and you may be adding vacation pay into it. The benefit to the employee is they get to control taxes, and the benefit to both the employee and the employer is that both parties save the Social Security and Medicare 7.65%. What we're going to be doing is looking at adding our medical trust plan, the prime plan, which is a medical reimbursement trust. So when we sit down with another participant or retiree, that person's concern may be paying for health care, We all know healthcare is one of the driving concerns of every retiree today. My wife is a retired teacher and she's on COBRA. I had to go buy my own healthcare. That is a treat for those of you who have never had to go online and buy your own healthcare. So if the employee does not need money for health, or excuse me, needs money for healthcare, the money goes into the medical reimbursement trust. And for that retiree, what is their primary benefit of having their accumulated sick pay and vacation pay going into the medical trust? The number one benefit is the employee can use that money tax-free to be reimbursed for their out-of-pocket post-retirement health care costs, including insurance premiums, Medicare, Medicare subs, long-term care, co-pays, and more. My third-party administrator does all the record keeping and the reimbursements, so we work directly with the participant to reimburse them for their accounts. The employee will also save on Social Security and Medicare, no differently than with the special pay plan, so will the employer. The employee will never pay federal or state taxes on this money. This is an HRA, health reimbursement arrangement, very similar to an HSA, except an HRA can only be funded with employer contributions. So we have tax-free earnings, and both the spouse and eligible dependents can be reimbursed, or the employee can be reimbursed for their spouses or qualified dependents' expenses. So the employee, instead of getting a cash distribution or deferring the money in a 403B, receives a triple tax benefit, a tax-free contribution by the employer, tax-free interest, and tax-free reimbursements. Under the new ACA rules, if the employee returns back to work for the district directly, they cannot access their account until they separate again, and then they can go back and be reimbursed for those expenses. This is a retiree plan. So if an employee retires this year and comes back to work for the district, they are still viewed as an active employee. And so when they terminate or separate again, they don't lose their money. They can just go back and be reimbursed for the expenses while they went back to work. What does it look financially? Now this is not going to fit into everybody's mold, but right now on the column on your right is what you have with your special pay plan. If an employee is in a 25% tax bracket on the last dollars they earn, they would have been paying $2,500 in taxes. With your special pay plan, they get to defer that. And if you have state tax bracket of 5%, they get to defer an extra $500. All right? So that leaves them at some point in time still having to pay taxes on that. If the employee needs money for health care, the money goes into the medical reimbursement trust. They never pay federal taxes, they never pay state taxes, and like your 403B plan, they never will pay the Social Security and Medicare. So when you have two participants up here, when they retire and they've got to pay for their health care, put yourself in their position. If you had to pay $10,000 of upcoming expenses in the next year or two for health insurance, which pile of money would you want to be paying that out of? A pile of money where the federal government and the state takes their taxes and leaves you $7,000, or would you rather have $10,000 tax-free to be reimbursed to create an income stream of tax-free money to reimburse yourself for your expenses, including insurance premiums? In our medical plan, we use a fixed guaranteed account. There's no investment choice. Okay, once we underwrite the case, we can determine if we can't pay any interest, but there is no risk to the principal. It's not in the market. The employee doesn't get to invest where they want to. We want to know that at least 100% of the money will be returned to the participant to be reimbursed for their medical expenses. The 403B, as far as expenses, your 403B plans that you have in place, I don't know a thing about them or the expenses that they incur. But for our plan, we do charge the participant $5 a month for administration and record keeping, and $4 each time they want electronic reimbursement. Many of them do it monthly to be reimbursed for their insurance premiums. This is not money like a 403B or an IRA that you're going to hold forever. Once you retire, you've got medical bills. So employees start to draw down that money quickly and want us to get them their money as fast as possible. So in summary, the school district currently has a 403B plan in place for accumulated sick pay and vacation pay. You're looking at adding vacation leave pay to what you currently have for sick pay, which will enhance the employee's savings of $7.65, but will also save the school system to $7.65. And then number two, if you add the medical reimbursement trust and create a true post-employment benefit plan, for those retirees who are leaving the district, they'll be able to use their money tax-free for health care instead of paying taxes on their 403B money and having after-tax money left available to pay those bills. So once again, a medical trust increases the participants' amount available for benefits. As far as your plan contacts, I own Precision Retirement Group, so I'll be out here working as I have with Mike in other places, and we have a local gentleman named Robert Young who will be helping me out with the district. So with that, I'll kind of open up to any questions.
Does this include dental? I'm right here.
Oh, okay.
So could it be used for dental?
Yes, it can be used for dental insurance. The money can be used pretty much for everything except elective cosmetic surgery and over-the-counter drugs. What we find is most people use it for that big ticket item, that health insurance premium every month, the Medicare subs. In fact, I had a young lady in Deer Valley 2 days ago said, oh, I really don't need the money for health care, I'm on Medicare. And then when she found out that her and her husband were both paying Medicare Part B and 2 supplements, and that's ballpark around $500 a month, she now said, well, I better use my money tax-free if I'm going to get reimbursed for that. So the money can be used for pretty much everything except elective cosmetic surgery and over-the-counter drugs.
I have a question. On the slide with regards to, this plan allows the employer to determine, I want to make sure that it's, a significant reason that, it's reasonable, because I don't want an employee to be upset that, well, I wanted it over here even though it's going to cost me money.
Well, the difference here is this is an employer plan. If it was an employee plan and the employee could, quote-unquote, choose which plan they wanted, the IRS may come back and look at that and says this is really an employee plan. In 2002, our company received a private letter ruling from the IRS that has not been challenged that says the employer can make the decision with no guidelines of how. So we put in an exit interview process whereby we work really closely with the participants so they understand the benefits and we can understand their needs, and it's worked out perfectly. In fact, we just had a school system in Utah got audited. They pulled all of our documents out and all of our procedures, and they said it's perfectly IRS compliant. You're doing it absolutely the correct way. The employee will get the plan that best suits their needs. What we have to do is work with them in the educational process and in group meetings prior to retirement so that they know what their medical expenses are. As an example, there's a school system in Connecticut where I was with the finance officer, and one day he was telling me a story about a young lady who called up and said, Rick, I'm retiring. This is a concern of mine. What will my health care costs be? What will my premiums be in retirement? And so Rick said to her, $800. And she says, wow, $800 a year, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And he said to her, no, it's $800 a month. And he said you could hear the phone drop. So in the exit interview process and prior, we work diligently to work with the retirees so that they understand the benefits of both plans, understanding their costs. And most of the employees, will, even before we get to that point, will come into the meeting with us and say, wow, this program is great. This will save me a lot of money in taxes because I'm getting my insurance through the ASRS, and you're going to send me a check every month. I don't have to go through the exit interview because they've already told me what their primary concerns are in retirement and where they're getting their health care.
Anybody else have any questions? All right.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mrs. Wilson, members of the board, so after sharing this information with you, our intentions are to bring a potential policy change to you at a future governing board and a first read.
All right, we're at item 7, our action items. We have 3 items under this. The first one is the Arizona School Board Association bylaw amendments. And if you will move to your, in your packet or on your tablet there, the bylaws are listed for you. And I think what we're going to do is, I had talked to Liz about this, and I think we're going to go through each one and vote on each one there.
there were a few of them, like 3 of them. I don't remember which ones. I'd have to, when we go through them that were the same, that, let's see, it was,
I think B and C were the ones that were the similar ones.
Right, the 2/3.
okay. So we can't vote both of them in. When we were at our county meeting, they said you
Right.
can't do both of them, so you might need to have a good discussion before those two.
All right, well, let's start just A, and we'll go down, and then when we get to B and C, we'll take a look at those. All right, so does anybody have any questions on A?
Madam President, just to clarify on this one, they're stating that currently that if a member misses one meeting, it could be excused by the board. However, with a proposed change,
Well, it would be deemed that they vacated.
Even if they miss, that's the second. So they can still miss one, it's the second
It's
one.
the
that
second one.
vacates
Okay.
it.
Whereas before, it was 4 meetings as opposed to, and then it was,
the date, the time, the calendar.
right.
So it was out of 4 consecutive meetings currently, and now they're saying out of any calendar year.
Well, they hold 4 meetings a year. Ms. Smith, how did you want to vote on that, on A?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Aye.
Yeah, I vote aye as well, so we'll keep proposal A. All right, B and C. So B is, that proposes a quorum of 60% of the ASBA member boards who must vote, and 3/4 of all the votes must be in the affirmative to amend or repeal a bylaw. And C is that the Maricopa USD recommends that a bylaw may be amended or repealed by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the ASBA member boards that vote.
I can speak to the work that the governance committee did on proposal B.
Okay?
The reason that they put that, first of all, quorum, a percent of all boards must participate in the vote, and then X% be affirmative to change anything. They didn't want, because there is that apathy in elections everywhere, they didn't want it to be a case of, like Maricopa being such a large group, you could easily have that overpower, and all of a sudden every decision is by one general area. So they still wanted that, they still wanted to get the full membership, a large percentage to participate, and then out of that, the 3/4 to actually vote in affirmative for any change to occur.
And that's the same with B, pretty much, too.
C.
That is B.
Oh, I'm sorry, C, the same thought.
It still changed the percent a little bit, because we actually had talked about those different types of options in the governance committee at ASBA. Because C is saying, if you have 200 school boards that are members of ASBA, but only 60 actually vote, it's saying 2/3 of that 60 passes it. Whereas the other is saying 60% of the total that exists that are members, and then out of that.
Okay, so knowing that, how do you vote on B then, Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel?
Madam President, just for clarification, are we picking B or C, or we're voting on each one separately?
We're voting on each one separately.
Aye.
Okay, and Ms. Bartels?
For proposal B, I vote aye.
Okay, and Mr. Aldama?
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye as well. So B passes, which means C is out.
negate. We still have to vote on it.
Right, yeah.
Do a motion and
Oh,
then
okay, sorry. All right, Ms. Smith?
No.
Ms. Pimentel?
Nay.
Okay, Ms. Bartels?
Nay.
Mr. Aldama?
Nay.
Chair votes nay, so that's out. All right, proposal D is the Tempe Elementary School District proposes an amendment to change the name of the ASBA Hispanic Native American Indian Caucus to the Hispanic Native American Caucus. And the background on that is the Native American is a term preferred by members of the HNAIC. So Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels?
Aye.
Mr. Aldama?
Yeah, just a comment, just very important that the background states that this is actually something that the members of the caucus have asked for, so I vote aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. Okay. On E, Gila Bend Unified School District proposes an amendment that will allow a seat on the ASBA Board of Directors for the president and past president of the Hispanic Native American Indian Caucus, HNIC. So currently, HNAIC has a single ex officio voting seat on the ASBA Board of Directors, which is held by the caucus's sitting president.
I think they did a better job this year of explaining the background on this one.
Yeah,
Because their presidency does alternate.
alternating, yeah, between a Hispanic and Native American.
Yeah.
Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel?
Aye.
Ms. Bartels?
Aye.
Mr. Aldama?
Aye.
Okay, chair votes aye. On proposal F, Concho Elementary School District proposes that no action by any delegate or presiding authority shall end debate or discussion at the delegate assembly. And the background rules of procedure for the delegate assembly are adopted by delegates at the assembly and currently allows delegates to call for the question to end debate or discussion. The motion requires a 2/3 vote of delegates to pass, and procedural rules for the delegate assembly currently are not in ASBA's bylaws. So they're proposing that no action by any delegate or presiding authority will end the debate or discussion.
I would like to speak to this one.
Okay,
Because
go right
Ms.
ahead.
Pimentel got to witness this as well this year. If it was not for the ability to call for the question, which then still has to pass by a vote to move on, we would have had people still debating
Yes.
a number on an item that was just used for just keeping track of what they were talking about. It was that bad. And that was an hour.
I believe it. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
No.
Okay, Ms. Pimentel?
Nay.
Ms. Bartels?
No.
Mr. Aldama?
Nay.
Chair votes no as well. All right, so now we are at proposal G. Concho Elementary School District proposes an amendment to establish a conservative caucus to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. The background on that is per the ASBA bylaws. ASBA caucuses shall exist to enhance the work of the association by addressing the unique needs of member districts. Caucuses are considered to be affiliated with ASBA as a program provider with responsibility for the caucuses. Each caucus is expected to adopt its own bylaws for operating, programming, and governing within the context of the relationship with ASBA described herein. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
No.
Ms. Pimentel?
Well, what I see here is the need to let caucuses be represented properly. Personal differences aside, with this specific one, I'm going to vote aye.
Okay. Ms. Bartels?
Me, just to explain my vote, one, I would almost wish they had put something in there to describe what a conservative caucus was, what the purpose of that was going to be for. But also, two, when each and every one of us is sworn in to our elected office, we speak to that we each individually will defend the Constitution of, support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So I vote no to that.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yeah, my comments are similar. I underlined conservative, and there's no definition to that, and it doesn't define it. So to that extent, I vote nay.
Yeah, same here, and so our chair votes no as well. And so we are going to vote as a board no on proposal G. Our proposal H is Littleton Elementary School District proposes a recommendation that the ASBA Legislative Committee shall hold a delegate assembly workshop in advance of the delegate assembly to orient new or existing members in establishing the political agenda, moving items for floor action, and explaining the process. The background on that is operational matters related to the delegate assembly are currently not included in the ASBA bylaws. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
I would like a discussion about this. Since you guys have been doing it the last few years, I know I've done it, but I remember my first time not having any workshops to tell me how to do my first delegate assembly. And so is there still no operational training that's in place at this time?
They explain the process as you're going in, but they also ask that, the experienced ones help the newbies. That's why, they have the first-time attendees on there. But I honestly don't see why we couldn't suggest to ASBA that ahead of the delegate assembly, they do a training video that can be shared with everybody that, so they can watch it and understand what it is they're doing and how it gets done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I went, of course, I had been to delegate assemblies before with the Education Association, but this still was, some of the rules and everything were a little new to me.
Robert's Rules of Order, you get a really good example of it.
Yeah, I caught on pretty quickly, but still that's an idea there. Instead of actually holding a delegate assembly workshop, you're asking somebody to give up probably some more time.
Yeah, whereas they could watch a video and get up to speed.
During their own time. Okay. Did you ready to vote, Ms. Smith?
I'm going to vote no, but I don't know if we can send that suggestion that we mentioned with our no vote in. I mean, just as a side note. Yeah, I don't think there's a place for comments at the moment. Okay, yeah, if we did send a separate email.
Yeah. Okay. Ms. Benatel?
Aye.
Ms. Portels?
No.
Mr. Obama? Okay, and I'm going to vote no. So what was that? I lost track.
3 to 2.
Okay. No. Do an unofficial action?
Yeah, you have to do a motion. And then a vote, to vote according to how you just decided.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to just record our votes that we just did.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right. Phew, that was the last one. You can all relax now. All right, so at our next action item is the gifted scope and sequence.
Yes, Mrs. Wilson, members of the governing board, it is recommended that the governing board approve the renewal of the gifted scope and sequence as presented.
Questions?
Yeah, I just have a question. I know that we have this scope and sequence, and I know that we have by reading this, that it says that we will have our children clustered, in our gifted things. Is this still like best practices? This is really what I want to know.
Green means go. President Wilson, members of the governing board, it is currently still research best practice to cluster the students, but I do know that we do a program evaluation every year just to ensure that we are aligned to those research best practices. And part of submitting this scope and sequence to the state every 3 years. Part of that is an accountability with the state because they look for that as well within each of our scope and sequences.
That's my question. Any other questions? All right. Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
I'll make a motion to approve the scope and sequence.
I'll second.
I'm still on the bylaws.
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel?
Aye.
Ms. Bartos?
Aye.
Mr. Aldama?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, the motion passes. All right, item 7C is the 2017-18 revenue budget.
Mrs. Wilson, members of the governing board, at this time, we are respectfully recommending the governing board approve the fiscal year 2017-18 revenue budget as presented.
Anyone have any questions? Yeah, I need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2017-18 revenue budget.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Smith, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Pimentel?
Aye.
Mrs. Bartels?
Aye.
Mr. Aldama?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye, the motion passes. All right, we are at future meetings and events. So under A, we have a chance to review the list of upcoming board meetings and potential agenda topics.
Yes, Mrs. Wilson, if I may, just a reminder that if the board chooses to proceed, we're scheduled to have myself provide the annual district progress report on the evening of December 7th with a follow-up on the 21st as it relates to a performance evaluation. The other major undertaking that we have on the 21st, if we choose to proceed with the schedule, is to review Policy Manual Section B. We recently had a policy review and we'll be bringing policies to you for your review and approval.
Okay.
And we decided not to proceed with the district progress report tonight since we had the other two lengthy presentations.
So the evaluation will be executive session
Yes, and that would be on the 21st.
on the 21st. Okay?
That's on the 21st?
On the 21st, yes. And then yeah. Okay. Anyone have any comments? Okay. 8B is agenda item request. So if there are any agenda items you would like to request at this time?
I have two.
Okay.
One, I don't know if we need a consensus on this, but maybe to have a study session or something with the help of ASBA with regards to our board self-evaluation.
We did get an email on that.
Right, but it's like your generic summary. It doesn't dive deeper into it to find out where. So, that is one, whether it's something that we bring to discuss, whether we do go forward or not.
Are they bringing that information forward though at the annual conference? All of our results?
Do what?
Aren't they bringing what you're asking forward at the annual conference?
Yeah, but I don't know if they're going to go deeper.
Well, I thought that for a small fee, we could have them dig deeper with us at a special session.
Right.
So do you want to check into that?
I personally would.
Is there a consensus on that? Sure. All right, so
Mrs. Wilson, if the governing board is asking that we proceed in that fashion, is there a timeline that you would like to have this occur within? If we have the study session and have ASBA?
After the first of the year. Maybe.
First of the year? Okay.
And then the other thing that if we could have brought back would be update where we're at with regards to our school year calendar.
I think that was on the...
Calendar update?
Yeah. That was on the, isn't that one of the agenda items?
For
Calendar?
we can certainly add that to our next meeting and have a quick update.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question before it goes on to the agenda, but Looking at the calendar here for next meetings, we have salary negotiations and meet and confer coming up. So has the board provided the superintendent our board priorities in regard to salary recommendations? If not, that probably should be on an agenda before all that happens.
Mr. Aldama, we have not had that meeting and certainly can include it in a future meeting.
Can we, understanding how everything lies here, that we would have one, that would be on the agenda so we can lay that out?
And we can do so either on the 7th or 21st, whatever is the will of the board.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Either one of those dates? Okay.
All right, summary of current events, Mr. Quintana?
Mrs. Wilson, members of the governing board, first of all, for those individuals in the audience, I'd like to, on Cindy's behalf, Cindy Segata-Jones, express her regret that she couldn't be here this evening. She had plans to, but she's expecting a grandbaby anytime right now, in the next hour or so, if the baby has not been born. And so just minutes before the board meeting, she left to go to the hospital and to be there hopefully when the baby arrives and be part of that joyful event. I have nothing else other than to wish everyone a restful and enjoyable 3-day weekend and encourage everyone to remember our veterans and to thank a veteran or our veterans if you have the opportunity to do so over this weekend.
And we'll move on with our board current events. Ms. Smith?
I have nothing.
Ms. Pimentel?
I'd just like to take a moment too to thank the veterans. I wish I would have thought to think ahead and ask how many veterans we have working for us. So for our teachers, our staff, thank you. It's important to me, and I, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. Even those of us who have families, who have a member somewhere overseas, across the country. But it's important, and take a moment to thank them. And to anybody in the Marine Corps, happy birthday. Tomorrow is the Marine Corps birthday. So if you know a Marine, take a moment and wish them happy birthday. It's a big thing for them. And there's also another birthday tomorrow, Board Member Aldama. I'd like to wish him a happy birthday. He shares it with the Marines, and
21 again?
He's
22.
22. But it's important. So if you see a Marine, if you see someone in the Air Force, the Navy, any kind of one of our military branches, take a moment, say thank you, shake their hand. If you're out to dinner, buy them that extra set of fries or something. They really appreciate it. That's all I have.
Ms. Bartel?
I had the pleasure of attending 2 of our Veteran Day celebrations at 2 of the schools this week, and both schools did a wonderful job inviting in different groups and recognizing that. But also I wanted to do a little shout out. I'm not going to specify the teacher names, but I have 8th grade class at Challenger and a kindergarten class at Desert Garden, and I received their thank you cards because I helped out with their Donors Choose projects this last couple of months. So I did get them, and they are wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Aldama?
Yes, thank you. First of all, Ms. Pimentel is being very modest. Her husband is a Marine, so thank you for allowing him to serve. And for all of you who serve, who are in the room here, and those who are not, but to our veterans, we thank each and every one of them. There is an event, though, if you would like to join. Veterans Day ceremony, the City of Glendale has one every year. It's Saturday, November 11th, obviously, from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. It's at the Glendale Main Library at 5959 West Brown Street, just north of here. It's a great event. It's been going on for many, many years, so you'll really like it. The ASMERIT report today, just very thrilled, very, very excited. So each and every one of you in the room and those who are not here, just excellent work. I'm really happy to see IMES out of being a D, so kudos to our principal and all those staff members and custodians and everybody who's part of educating kids. And really excited about the report today. And on the 21st, my council office has taken a significant role, both financially and supportive to our Challenger Middle School, who's having their 5th annual Thanksgiving dinner. It's a great thing that the principal does there, so if you can join her, please come out and join each and every one of us in the community there, but it should be very great, and I think she puts out probably 2,000 plates of food for our community, so come and join. I know some of the administration team will be there as well. Thank you.
All right, and ditto on everything. Congratulations to all of you on your AZ merits, and enjoy your 3-day weekend. So I will need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.